So this is a human battle tactic. The words echoed through the grand chamber of the Denobulan High Council, a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect coloring the alien voices. Grant, the human military strategist, stood before the assembly, his stance firm despite the palpable tension in the air. The recent devastating defeat of the Denobulan forces at the hands of Earth's military had sent shockwaves through the alien empire. Their superior technology and overwhelming numbers had proven insufficient against the inexplicable strategies employed by the humans. Now the Denobulans demanded answers. Grant cleared his throat, his eyes scanning the sea of confused and angry faces before him. "We call it controlled chaos," he began, his voice steady. "It's a tactic designed to create confusion and unpredictability on the battlefield, exploiting the rigidity of your battle formations." A murmur rippled through the council chamber. The Denobulans, known throughout the galaxy for their logical and methodical approach to warfare, struggled to comprehend this revelation. Their carefully planned strategies and perfectly executed maneuvers had always served them well in the past. How could such disorder lead to victory? Grant took a deep breath, knowing his words could determine the future of Earth-Denobulan relations and potentially shift the balance of power in the galaxy. It's about adapting, reacting, and creating opportunities where none seem to exist. We train our soldiers to think independently, to make split-second decisions based on rapidly changing circumstances. The council chamber erupted in heated discussions. Grant stood his ground, aware of the weight of his role as both military strategist and reluctant diplomat. Earth's independence hung in the balance, its worth among technologically advanced civilizations yet to be fully proven. As the commotion died down, the lead counselor spoke again. "We require a demonstration of this tactic. A war game shall be arranged between human and Denobulan forces. The outcome will determine our future course of action." Grant nodded, understanding the high stakes of this challenge. As he turned to leave, he noticed a Denobulan military officer watching him intently. This, he would later learn, was Antares, assigned to observe and report on the human tactics. Their eyes met, a mixture of curiosity and wariness passing between them. Despite the initial tension, Grant sensed a potential for understanding. He approached Antares, extending his hand in a human gesture of greeting. "I look forward to working with you," Grant said, his voice low but firm. Antares hesitated before grasping Grant's hand. "As do I, human. Your methods are intriguing." As preparations for the war game began, Grant knew he faced a daunting task. He had to navigate the complex political landscape while also readying his forces for a crucial demonstration that could determine humanity's fate. The galaxy watched and waited, eager to see if the humans' unconventional tactics would prove to be a fleeting anomaly or a game-changing force in intergalactic warfare. The stage was set for a clash of strategies, a battle of wits and adaptability. As Grant immersed himself in the preparations, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity had come so far, fighting to maintain its independence among the stars. Now, they had a chance to prove their worth once and for all. Little did the Denobulans know the true power of human ingenuity was about to be unleashed. As the council chamber emptied, Grant found himself alone with Antares, the Denobulan officer's eyes still fixed on him with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. The weight of the impending war game demonstration settled heavily on Grant's shoulders, but he refused to let it show. "I suppose we'll be seeing a lot of each other," Grant said, breaking the silence. Antares nodded, her posture stiff. "Indeed, I've been assigned to observe your preparations and tactics throughout this demonstration." Before Grant could respond, a junior Denobulan officer approached, handing Antares a datapad. She scanned it quickly, her brow furrowing. "It seems the High Council has made some adjustments to the parameters of your demonstration," Antares said, her voice carefully neutral. Grant's stomach tightened. "What kind of adjustments?" Antares handed him the pad. "See for yourself." As Grant read through the details, his fists tight. The Council had imposed severe limitations on his resources, outdated equipment, a fraction of the manpower he'd expected, and restrictions on advanced technology. It was clear they were stacking the odds against him. "Well, Grant said, handing the pad back to Antares. I suppose this is where we show you what human ingenuity can really do. Over the next few days, Grant assembled his team. He handpicked a diverse group of specialists, each bringing unique skills to the table. Among them was Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a brilliant xenobiologist whose expertise in denobulin physiology and psychology would prove invaluable. As they gathered for their first strategy session, Grant surveyed the room. Despite the challenges ahead, there was an energy in the air, a sense of willpower that needed no verbose declaration. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, her dark eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. I've been studying denobulin battle doctrines. Their rigid adherence to established patterns is both a strength and a weakness. If we can disrupt their expectations, we can throw their entire strategy into disarray. Grant nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. Exactly. We're going to turn their superiority against them. Every piece of advanced tech they field is an opportunity for us to exploit. As the team delved into planning, Antares watched from the sidelines, her expression unreadable. Grant caught her eye occasionally, noticing a glimmer of intrigue beneath her stoic exterior. The war game simulation was set in a sprawling, multi-terrain environment that mirrored real-world combat conditions. Dense forests gave way to arid deserts, punctuated by treacherous mountain ranges and winding rivers. As Grant's team surveyed the landscape, the enormity of their task became clear. They've given us every possible disadvantage, muttered Chen, the team's communications specialist, as he struggled with an outdated transmitter. Grant placed a hand on Chen's shoulder. Then we'll make those disadvantages our strength. Keep working on that transmitter. I have a feeling it's going to be key to our strategy. As the simulation began, Grant's unconventional tactics immediately threw the denobulin forces into confusion. He deployed decoy units, creating false patterns that lured the enemy into exposed positions. Rapid redeployment strategies kept the denobulins off balance, never allowing them to pin down the human forces. From her observation post, Antares watched with growing fascination. The humans' movements seemed chaotic, almost random, yet there was an underlying logic that she struggled to grasp. She found herself leaning forward, eyes fixed on the tactical displays, trying to anticipate Grant's next move. Meanwhile, in the denobulin High Council chamber, heated debates erupted as they observed the unfolding war game. "This is madness!" exclaimed one counselor, gesturing wildly at the holographic battle map. "Their tactics defy all logical analysis." Another counselor leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "And yet, they're effectively countering our every move. We cannot dismiss this as mere luck." As the simulation progressed, Grant's team faced increasingly difficult scenarios. In one particularly challenging moment, they found themselves cornered in a narrow mountain pass, denobulin forces closing in from both sides. "Chen, how's that transmitter coming?" Grant called out, his eyes scanning the terrain for any advantage. Chen grinned, holding up the modified device. "Ready, sir. You won't believe what this antique can do now." Grant nodded. "Perfect. Dr. Rodriguez, you're up." "Now!" Grant shouted, and his team sprang into action. They slipped through gaps in the enemy line, using the confusion to turn the tables on their pursuers. As the battle raged on, Grant found himself working more closely with Antares. Despite her initial skepticism, she couldn't help but be drawn in by the human's passion and creativity. "I've never seen anything like this," Antares admitted during a lull in the fighting. "Your people's ability to adapt, to find solutions where none seem to exist. It's remarkable." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the war game faded into the background. There was a connection forming between them, transcending their roles as observer and observed. The moment was broken by an alarm blaring from the command center. Grant rushed to the tactical display, Antares close behind. The main denobulin force had rallied, launching a massive assault that threatened to overwhelm Grant's stretched defenses. "All right, team," he said, his voice steady. "It's time for our endgame. Let's show the galaxy what humans are really capable of." With that, Grant began outlining his most audacious plan yet. As his team listened, their eyes widening at the sheer audacity of the strategy, even Antares found herself leaning in, captivated by the unfolding human drama. The fate of Earth's standing in the galactic community hung in the balance as Grant prepared to unleash the full power of human ingenuity against the mighty Denobulan war machine. "All right, here's the plan," Grant began, his voice low and intense. "We're going to disperse into small, highly mobile units. Each team will have the autonomy to make decisions based on the situation on the ground. Our goal is to create confusion and unpredictability." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Sir, won't that leave us vulnerable to their superior firepower?" Grant smiled. "That's where our secret weapon comes in." He gestured to a new face in the group, a lanky man with sharp features and quick eyes. "Everyone, meet Jake Morrison, our electronic warfare specialist." Morrison stepped forward, holding up a small device. "These are electromagnetic pulse generators. We'll place them strategically across the battlefield. When activated, they'll temporarily disable the Denobulan's advanced tech." Dr. Rodriguez's eyes lit up with understanding. "Brilliant. Without their high-tech systems, they'll be forced to rely on more basic tactics." As the team dispersed to prepare, Grant noticed Antares watching from the corner of the room. Her expression was a mix of fascination and concern. "You're taking quite a risk," she said as he approached. Grant shrugged. "Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one." Hours later, the war game reached its critical juncture. Grant's forces were spread across the simulated terrain, each unit poised to act. From his makeshift command center, Grant watched the Denobulan forces advance in their perfect, predictable formations. Across the battlefield, the EMP devices activated in a cascading wave. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Denobulan energy weapons sputtered and died. Communication systems crackled with static before falling silent. Sophisticated targeting systems blinked out, leaving the Denobulan soldiers momentarily blind and confused. Grant's voice crackled over the comm. "All units, execute Operation Chaos." The human forces sprang into action. Small teams darted between the confused Denobulan ranks, striking at key points before melting away. A group led by Dr. Rodriguez used modified Denobulan communicators to broadcast false orders, further disorienting the enemy. The lead counselor leaned forward, his eyes narrow. "They found a way to neutralize our technological advantage. Clever." Back on the battlefield, Grant led a small team towards the Denobulan command center. They moved swiftly through the underbrush, using the confusion to mask their approach. "Sir," whispered Chen, pointing ahead. A Denobulan patrol was approaching, their weapons still functional. Grant signaled his team to hold position. He picked up a stone and threw it far to their left. The patrol turned towards the sound, allowing Grant's team to slip past unnoticed. As they neared the command center, Grant saw the formidable defenses. Even with their systems down, the Denobulans had established a strong perimeter. "Time for some misdirection," Grant muttered. He turned to Morrison. "Can you rig up something to create a diversion?" Morrison grinned, pulling out components from his pack. "Give me 2 minutes." While Morrison worked, Grant outlined his plan to the team. Moments later, a series of explosions rocked the far side of the command center. As Denobulan forces rushed to respond, Grant's team slipped through a gap in their defenses. Inside, they moved quickly through the corridors. Grant had memorized the layout from intelligence reports, leading them unerringly towards the central control room. They encountered resistance at the final security checkpoint. Grant's team used improvised smoke grenades and close-quarters combat techniques to overcome the guards, demonstrating the human capacity for adaptation in the heat of battle. Finally, they breached the control room. The Denobulan commanders looked up in shock as Grant's team secured the room. "I believe this concludes our demonstration," Grant said, unable to keep a note of pride from his voice. In the observation room, Antares watched the unfolding events with a mix of emotions. Part of her felt a surge of admiration for the ingenuity and courage displayed by Grant and his team. Another part felt a deep unease at the implications of this victory. As the simulation ended, the Denobulan High Council erupted into heated debate. Some demanded an immediate end to any cooperation with humans, viewing them as a potential threat. Others argued for closer ties, seeing the potential benefits of learning from human tactics. Grant emerged from the command center to find Antares waiting for him. Her expression was unreadable. Before Grant could respond, they were interrupted by the arrival of the lead counselor. His face was stern, but there was a glimmer of respect in his eyes. As Grant prepared to enter negotiations that would shape the future of human-denobulan relations, he caught Antares' eye once more. In that moment, he realized that the true challenge was just beginning. The war game was over, but the complex dance of interstellar politics was about to begin in earnest. News of the human victory spread quickly through subspace channels. On distant worlds, other races took notice. The humans, once dismissed as primitive newcomers, were suddenly viewed in a new light. In the great cosmic chess game, a new piece had just revealed its potential. Grant squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had just announced its arrival on the galactic stage. Grant's stunning victory in the war game sent shockwaves through the galactic community. As he emerged from the command center, he found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Denobulan officials huddled in intense discussions, their voices a mix of concern and grudging admiration. Human observers celebrated, their excitement palpable in the air. Amidst the chaos, Grant noticed a new figure striding purposefully towards him. The Denobulan's weathered face and piercing gaze spoke of years of diplomatic experience. "Commander Grant," the Denobulan said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "I am Ambassador Zorn. Your performance today has caused quite a stir." Grant shook the ambassador's hand, noting the firm grip. "Thank you, Ambassador. I hope our demonstration has opened up new possibilities for cooperation between our species." Zorn's expression remained neutral, but there was a glint of interest in his eyes. "Indeed it has. In fact, I've just proposed a joint human-denobulan military exercise to the High Council. They've approved it, albeit with some reservations." Grant's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "A joint exercise? That's unexpected." "These are unexpected times, Commander," Zorn replied. "Your tactics have proven that there's much our species can learn from each other. The exercise will take place on Novus Prime. I trust you're familiar with its reputation?" Grant nodded. Novus Prime was notorious for its harsh, unpredictable environment. It would push both species to their limits. "I'll need to assemble a team," Grant said, his mind already racing through potential candidates. "Of course," Zorn agreed. "I look forward to seeing what your people can do in a more collaborative setting." As Zorn departed, Grant felt a presence at his side. He turned to find Antares, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "A joint exercise," she mused. "This is unprecedented." Grant smiled. "Isn't that what we're all about? Pushing boundaries? Exploring new frontiers?" Antares shook her head, but there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. "You humans certainly have a way of shaking things up." In the following days, Grant threw himself into preparations for the joint exercise. He handpicked his team, ensuring a mix of skills and personalities that could adapt to the challenges ahead. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Jake Morrison were among his first choices, their expertise invaluable in the war game. As the human contingent arrived on Novus Prime, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Denobulan soldiers eyed their human counterparts warily, while the humans struggled to make sense of the advanced Denobulan technology surrounding them. Grant observed the strained interactions with growing concern. He pulled aside his second-in-command, a seasoned officer named Sarah Chen. "We need to break the ice," Grant said. "Organize some informal gatherings. Get our people mingling with the Denobulans off-duty." Chen nodded. "I'm on it, sir. But don't expect miracles. There's a lot of mistrust to overcome." The first of these gatherings was a tense affair. Humans and Denobulans clustered in separate groups, conversations stilted and uncomfortable. Grant moved between the groups, doing his best to facilitate interaction. As he approached the refreshment table, he found himself face-to-face with Antares. She was gazing out at the gathering, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Not quite the picture of interspecies cooperation yet, is it?" Grant said, pouring himself a drink. Antares turned to him, a wry smile on her face. "It's a start. I must admit I'm curious to see how this exercise unfolds. Your tactics in the war game were Intriguing. Grant chuckled. That's one word for it. I'm hoping we can find a way to combine our strengths. Your technology, our adaptability. It could be a powerful combination. If we can overcome our differences, Antares added. The moment was broken by a commotion across the room. Two soldiers, one human and one denobulan, were engaged in a heated argument. Grant moved quickly to intervene, Antares close behind. As they approached, Grant caught snippets of the conversation. The human soldier was frustrated with the complexity of denobulan equipment, while the denobulan was dismissive of human tactics. Grant stepped between them, his voice calm but authoritative. Gentlemen, this is exactly the kind of misunderstanding we're here to overcome. Instead of arguing, why don't you each take a moment to explain your perspective? As the gathering wound down, Grant felt a small sense of accomplishment. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The next morning, the joint exercise began in earnest. Mixed human denobulan teams were tasked with navigating the treacherous terrain of Novus Prime, facing simulated enemy forces with technology far beyond their own. The initial results were discouraging. Human soldiers struggled to integrate with denobulan technology, while denobulan troops found human tactics chaotic and unpredictable. Grant watched from the command center, his brow furrowed in concentration. This isn't working, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Beside him, Antares nodded in agreement. Our approaches are too different. We're working against each other instead of with each other. Grant's mind raced, recalling the lessons of the wargame. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He turned to the communications officer. Get me all team leaders now, he ordered. As the team leaders gathered, Grant outlined his new strategy. He would create mixed units, pairing human strategists with denobulan technicians. Each unit would have the flexibility to adapt human tactics while leveraging denobulan technology. The new approach was met with skepticism from both sides, but Grant was insistent. We're here to learn from each other, he reminded them. This is our chance to do something truly innovative. As the reconfigured teams deployed, Grant held his breath. At first, the results were mixed. There were missteps and misunderstandings. But gradually, something remarkable began to happen. The human denobulan units started to gel, each species learning from the other in real time. Grant watched the tactical displays with growing excitement. A human squad was using denobulan sensor technology to predict and counter enemy movements in ways that would have been impossible before. Meanwhile, a denobulan unit was employing human-inspired guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver a numerically superior force. Grant allowed himself a small smile. It's a start, he replied, echoing her words from the night before. But their moment of triumph was short-lived. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the command center. Grant spun towards the main display, his heart racing. What's happening? He demanded. The tactical officer, a young denobulan, looked up with fear in his eyes. Sir, we're detecting multiple unknown ships entering the system. They're not responding to hails and are on an intercept course. Grant's mind raced. This wasn't part of the exercise. Something had gone terribly wrong. All units, this is Commander Grant. He broadcast to the combined human denobulan force. We have a real-world situation developing. Unknown hostile forces are inbound. This is not a drill. Prepare for possible engagement. As the unknown ships drew closer, tension in the command center reached a fever pitch. Grant stood at the center of the storm, his mind already shifting gears from training exercise to real combat. The tactical officer's fingers flew over his console. Sir, the ships match no known configuration in our database. Their technology appears to be highly advanced. Grant nodded grimly. They were facing an unknown enemy with superior technology. It was time to put their newly forged human denobulan cooperation to the ultimate test. Antares, he said, turning to the denobulan officer. We need to coordinate our defenses, your technology, our tactics. Let's show these unknowns what we can do together. Antares met his gaze, a determined glint in her eye. Agreed, Commander. Let's make history. As the unknown ships entered weapons range, Grant took a deep breath. The real battle was about to begin, and the fate of both humans and denobulans hung in the balance. Balance. Grant's mind raced, assessing their options as the unknown ships closed in. All units, prepare for defensive maneuvers, he ordered, his voice calm but authoritative. Denobulan ships, form a perimeter. Human vessels, prepare for intercept on my mark. As the combined forces moved into position, the tactical display lit up with weapons fire. The unknown ships unleashed a barrage of energy beams, their technology far beyond anything Grant had encountered before. Evasive action, Grant shouted. The human and Denobulan ships scattered, narrowly avoiding the deadly assault. In the chaos of battle, Grant noticed something extraordinary. The mixed human-Denobulan units they had formed during the exercise were adapting quickly, combining Denobulan precision with human unpredictability. A flash of inspiration struck him. "Antares," he called out, "we need to implement adaptive tactics on a larger scale. Can your systems handle real-time strategic updates?" Antares nodded, her fingers flying over her console. "We can make it work. What do you have in mind?" Grant outlined his plan rapidly, combining elements of human swarm tactics with Denobulan technological prowess. As they worked, the battle raged on outside. The unknown ships, which they would later learn were Xeraxian, pressed their attack relentlessly. Through a Herculean effort of cooperation and innovation, the human Denobulan force managed to repel the Xeraxian attack. As the last enemy ship retreated, a cheer went up in the command center. In the days that followed, Grant initiated a series of intensive strategic planning sessions. He brought together the best minds from both species, determined to forge a new approach to combat that would leverage their combined strengths. During one particularly grueling session, Grant introduced a concept he called adaptive swarm intelligence. He stood before a holographic display, gesturing at the complex patterns swirling before him. "The key is to create small, autonomous units," he explained, "capable of rapid adaptation to battlefield conditions, but we'll link them through advanced communication networks, maintaining a cohesive strategy even in chaos." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had proven invaluable during the war game, leaned forward with interest. "We could use a network of semi-autonomous drones," she suggested, "controlled by both human intuition and Denobulan algorithms." Jake Morrison, the tactical expert, nodded enthusiastically. That would allow for split-second decision-making without losing sight of the bigger picture. As they worked to develop this new system, integrating human and Denobulan technologies proved challenging. Grant often found himself mediating between frustrated scientists from both species, encouraging them to push beyond their preconceptions. One evening, as Grant was reviewing the latest simulations, Ambassador Zorn entered the command center. His expression was grave. "Commander," Zorn said, "we've received intelligence that the Xeraxians are amassing a larger fleet. They intend to launch a full-scale invasion of Novus Prime." Grant's eyes hardened. They had repelled the first attack, but a full invasion was another matter entirely. "We'll need more than just military might to face this threat," he mused. Antares met his gaze, a mix of excitement and apprehension in her eyes. "Of course, Commander. It would be my honor." As they prepared for the mission, Grant found himself spending more time with Antares. Their late-night strategy sessions often veered into personal conversations, revealing a deepening connection between them. Grant felt drawn to her intelligence and quiet strength, while Antares found herself captivated by his innovative thinking and leadership. The journey to the Galactic Conclave was tense, filled with preparation and strategizing. When they arrived at the massive space station that housed the gathering, Grant felt a mix of awe and trepidation. The main chamber of the conclave was a cacophony of alien languages and cultural displays. Grant and his team, including Antares, made their way to the podium allocated to Earth and its allies. As Grant began his address, he could feel the skepticism emanating from many of the gathered representatives. He spoke of the Xeraxian threat, the successful cooperation between humans and Denobulans, and the need for a united front against aggression. Many dismissed his words outright. One representative, a towering insectoid being, chittered loudly. Why should we heed the words of a species barely able to leave their own solar system? Grant was about to respond when another voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. Perhaps because they offer a fresh perspective unencumbered by centuries of galactic politics. The speaker was a sleek reptilian being with iridescent scales. He approached Grant's podium, his movements fluid and purposeful. "I am Zalax of the Orcs, he introduced himself. "Your tactics against the Zeraxians were intriguing. Tell me more about this adaptive swarm intelligence." As Grant explained the concept, he could see interest kindling in Zalax's eyes. Other representatives began to listen more closely, their earlier dismissiveness fading. Suddenly, an urgent message flashed on Grant's communicator. The Zeraxians had launched their invasion of Novus Prime ahead of schedule. Grant's heart raced as he realized he needed to coordinate the planet's defense remotely while continuing his diplomatic mission. In a bold move, Grant patched through a live feed from the battle to the Conclave's main display. The gathered representatives watched in astonishment as the human Denobulan forces employed their new tactics against the Zeraxian fleet. Swarms of drones darted between larger ships, their movements unpredictable, yet coordinated. Denobulan cruisers provided fire support with pinpoint accuracy, while human vessels executed daring maneuvers that caught the Zeraxians off guard. As the battle unfolded, Grant delivered an impassioned speech. He spoke of the strength found in diversity, the power of cooperation in the face of existential threats. His words, combined with the impressive display of human Denobulan teamwork on the screens, began to sway the opinions of the gathered aliens. Zalax was the first to step forward. "The Orcs stand with Earth and Denobula," he declared. Others followed suit, pledging their support against the Zeraxian threat. As the conclave session ended, Grant felt a mix of relief and apprehension. They had gained allies, but the real test was yet to come. The battle for Novus Prime was just the opening salvo in what promised to be a grueling conflict. Antares approached him, her expression a mirror of his own complex emotions. "We've made a start," she said softly, "but there's still so much to do." Grant nodded, his mind already racing with plans and strategies. The Zeraxians were formidable, but they had underestimated the power of unity. As he prepared to return to Novus Prime, Grant knew that the true challenge lay ahead, not just in defeating the Zeraxians, but in forging a lasting alliance among the stars. Diverse species of the galaxy into a cohesive force capable of standing against the Zeraxian threat. The journey back to Novus Prime was tense, with Grant and his team utilizing every moment to strategize and prepare. As their ship dropped out of hyperspace, the scene that greeted them was one of chaos and destruction. The Zeraxian invasion force had arrived ahead of schedule, and the combined human Denobulan fleet was struggling to hold the line. Grant's lips pursed as he took in the tactical display. "Status report," he barked, his eyes never leaving the holographic representation of the battle. "Sir, our forces are holding, but barely," Jake Morrison replied, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "The Zeraxians have superior numbers and their technology is giving them a significant edge." Grant nodded grimly. "Then it's time we change the rules of engagement. Dr. Rodriguez, is the adaptive swarm intelligence system ready for full deployment?" Elena Rodriguez looked up from her console, her eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "It's as ready as it'll ever be, Commander. We've never tested it on this scale before, but the simulations are promising." "It'll have to do," Grant said. He turned to address the entire bridge crew. "Listen up, people. We're about to implement a radical new tactic. I need everyone at their best. Jake, coordinate with the Denobulan ships. Elena, start integrating the swarm intelligence across all our units. Let's show these Zeraxians what we're made of." As the orders were relayed and the new system came online, the tide of battle began to shift. The once disorganized human and Denobulan ships suddenly moved with newfound purpose and coordination. Small, autonomous drones darted between the larger vessels, forming intricate patterns that confused and disoriented the Zeraxian forces. Grant watched with growing satisfaction as the enemy's rigid formations began to falter. "It's working," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "They can't adapt to our unpredictability." Antares stood at his side, her eyes wide with wonder. "I've never seen anything like this," she said. "The way our forces are moving, it's like they're part of a single living organism." Their moment of triumph was short-lived, however. A massive energy signature suddenly appeared on their sensors, heralding the arrival of the Xeraxian flagship. The enormous vessel dwarfed everything else on the battlefield, its hull filled with weapon emplacements. "Sir," Jake called out, his voice tight with tension, "the Xeraxian flagship is deploying some kind of energy field. It's disrupting our swarm intelligence network." Grant's mind raced, analyzing the situation and formulating a plan. "We need to take out that flagship," he said, his voice filled with unwavering perseverance. "Antares, what do you know about Xeraxian ship design?" A small smile tugged at Grant's lips. "Perfect timing, Xalax. We're about to attempt a daring maneuver, and we could use your advanced technology to pull it off." With the arrival of the Orcs ships, Grant put his plan into motion. Using a captured Xeraxian shuttle and a modified version of the swarm intelligence system, he assembled a small, elite team for a high-risk infiltration mission. "Our objective is simple," Grant briefed the team as they prepared to board the shuttle. "We get in, we disrupt their command structure, and we get out. Any questions?" The assembled group of humans and denobulans looked at each other, then back at Grant. One of the human specialists, a wiry man named Coda, raised his hand. "Just one, sir. How exactly are we going to pull this off?" Grant allowed himself a small grin. "With a combination of human ingenuity, denobulan expertise, and a healthy dose of audacity. Antares?" Antares stepped forward, holding up a small device. "This is a modified version of our swarm intelligence system. It should allow us to mask our approach and, once we're inside, interfere with their internal communications." She nodded, her expression a mirror of his own complex emotions. "As ready as I'll ever be." The shuttle launched, quickly disappearing among the chaos of the battle. As they approached the massive Xeraxian flagship, Grant marveled at its size and complexity. "Antares, any insights on where we should breach?" Antares studied the ship's exterior, her brow furrowed in concentration. "There," she said, pointing to a section near the ship's midsection. "That looks like a maintenance access port. It should be less heavily guarded than the main hangars." Grant nodded, guiding the shuttle towards the indicated spot. As they drew closer, alarms began to blare inside the cockpit. "They've detected us," Coda called out from his position at the sensor station. "Activating the swarm mask now," Antares said, her fingers flying over the controls of their modified device. The alarms suddenly fell silent, and the shuttle continued its approach unimpeded. As they docked with the Xeraxian ship, Grant turned to address his team one last time. "Remember, our goal is to reach the command center and disrupt their coordination. Stay together, stay alert, and most importantly, stay alive." The team moved swiftly through the alien corridors, encountering and quickly neutralizing small groups of Xeraxian crew members. Grant was impressed by the seamless coordination between the human and denobulan members of his team, a testament to their recent joint training exercises. As they neared the command center, resistance became fiercer. Grant and Antares found themselves working in perfect sync, covering each other's blind spots and anticipating each other's moves. In a quieter moment between firefights, Grant caught Antares' eye. "We make a good team," he said softly. Antares nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "Indeed we do, Commander." Finally, they reached the entrance to the command center. Grant took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. "This is it," he said to his team. "Whatever happens next, I want you all to know it's been an honor serving with you." With a nod to Coda, who had rigged an explosive charge to the door, Grant gave the signal. The door blew inward with a deafening roar, and the team surged forward into the heart of the Xeraxian command. The scene that greeted them was one of controlled chaos. Xeraxian officers moved about the large circular room with purpose, calling out reports and orders in their harsh, clicking language. At the center of it all stood a towering figure that could only be the Xeraxian Supreme Commander, Krazak. As alarms blared and the Xeraxian crew reacted to the intrusion, Grant locked eyes with the alien leader. In that moment, he knew that the real battle was just beginning. Grant's team moved with practiced precision, neutralizing the Xeraxian crew members before they could mount an effective defense. Antares and Coda secured the perimeter, while Grant advanced towards Krazak, who stood defiantly at the center of the command hub. "This ends now," Grant declared, his voice firm and unwavering. "Order your forces to stand down." Krazak's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "You underestimate the Zyraxian Empire, human. This is merely a setback." Before Grant could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the tactical display showed the Zyraxian fleet in disarray, their formation crumbling under the combined assault of human, Denobulan, and newly arrived Orcs ships. "Your flagship has fallen," Grant stated. "Without centralized command, your invasion force is finished. Surrender, and we can avoid further bloodshed." For a tense moment, Krazak seemed to consider his options. Then, with a gesture that seemed both alien and oddly familiar, he signaled his surrender. The battle for Novus Prime was over. In the days that followed, Grant found himself thrust into a whirlwind of diplomatic activity. The success of the human Denobulan Orcs alliance had sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Species that had previously dismissed Earth as an insignificant newcomer now clamored for attention and alliances. Grant stood before a gathering of representatives from dozens of alien races, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "The Zyraxian threat has been repelled, but we must remain vigilant. I propose the formation of a galactic defense initiative, a coalition dedicated to mutual protection and the advancement of all our peoples." The proposal was met with a mix of enthusiasm and skepticism. Some species eagerly pledged their support, while others remained hesitant, wary of committing to such a bold new venture. Zalax, the Orcs representative who had proven instrumental in their victory, approached Grant after the session. "Your initiative has merit, Commander Grant. The Orcs are interested in deepening our alliance. Perhaps you would consider visiting our homeworld to discuss further cooperation?" Grant nodded, recognizing the significance of the invitation. "I'd be honored, Zalax. When can we depart?" The journey to the Orcs homeworld was a testament to the rapidly evolving interstellar landscape. Grant, accompanied by Antares and a select team of human and Denobulan specialists, marveled at the efficiency of Orcs faster-than-light technology. They covered vast cosmic distances in a fraction of the time Earth's best ships could manage. As they approached the Orcs system, Grant's breath caught in his throat. The planet before them was a gleaming jewel of technology and natural beauty. Orbital structures of mind-boggling complexity encircled the world, while the surface below showed a harmonious blend of advanced cities and preserved wildernesses. Zalax met them at the spaceport, his scales shimmering with pride. "Welcome to Arxuria, the cradle of our civilization. We have much to show you." The next few days were a blur of technological marvels and cultural exchanges. Grant and his team were introduced to advancements that seemed to border on the impossible. Quantum computers that could process data faster than the human mind could comprehend. Biotechnology that could regrow lost limbs in hours. And most impressively, a powerful energy source that the Orcs called Nova Crystals. During a demonstration of Nova Crystal technology, Grant watched in awe as a small crystal, no larger than his thumb, powered an entire city block. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, their scientific expert, could barely contain her excitement. "The applications of this technology are limitless," she whispered. "It could revolutionize everything from space travel to planetary defense." However, Grant noticed a hesitancy among the Orcs scientists when discussing potential military applications of Nova crystals. He broached the subject carefully with Zalax during a private moment. "We have seen the destructive potential of such power," Zalax explained, his voice tinged with sadness. "Millennia ago, our people nearly destroyed themselves in wars fought with Nova crystal weapons. We swore never to let such devastation occur again." Grant nodded, understanding the weight of such history. "What if we proposed a joint research initiative?" he suggested. "We could work together to develop safeguards and ethical guidelines for the use of Nova crystals. It's clear this technology could be a game-changer in our defense against threats like the Zyraxians, but it's equally important that we use it responsibly." Zalax's eyes widened, a sign of approval in Arxur body language. "Your wisdom surprises me, Commander Grant. Many species would simply demand access to our technology without considering the consequences. Your proposal, it has merit. I will bring it before our leadership. As they waited for the Orcs decision, Grant received troubling news from Earth. Intelligence reports indicated that the Zyraxians, though defeated at Novus Prime, were far from finished. They were regrouping, and worse, seeking new allies. We've intercepted communications between Zyraxian diplomats and a species known as the Voraks, Jake Morrison reported during a secure briefing. The Voraks are notorious for their advanced bioengineering capabilities. If they ally with the Zyraxians, Grant finished the thought grimly, it could shift the balance of power dramatically. He turned to Antares, who had been quietly absorbing the information. What do we know about the Voraks? Antares frowned, her brow furrowing in concentration. Very little, I'm afraid. They're isolationists, known for their hostility towards other species. Making contact with them would be extremely dangerous. Grant's mind raced, weighing their options. The fledgling Galactic Defense Initiative was still finding its footing. They couldn't afford to let the Zyraxians gain such a powerful ally. A bold plan began to form in his mind. We need to reach out to the Voraks before the Zyraxians can solidify an alliance, Grant declared. I'll lead a covert mission to their homeworld. We'll use everything we've learned from the Orcs to get past their defenses and open a dialogue. Antares looked at him with a mix of admiration and concern. It's incredibly risky, Grant, but I see no other choice. I'm coming with you. As Grant began assembling his team for the mission, word came from the Orcs leadership. They had agreed to a limited technology transfer, allowing the Alliance to begin integrating Nova Crystal technology into their defense systems. It was a significant show of trust, one that Grant knew they would have to honor. With Dr. Rodriguez and Jake Morrison rounding out the team, Grant prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. They boarded a prototype stealth ship equipped with the latest adaptive swarm intelligence system and Nova Crystal enhancements. As they left Arxuria behind, Grant felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The future of the galaxy might well depend on the outcome of this mission. As they charted a course for Vorak space, Grant studied the limited intelligence they had on their destination. The Vorak's homeworld was a mystery, wrapped in layers of defensive systems and isolationist policies. They would be entering unknown territory, facing unknown dangers. The stealth ship slipped into faster-than-light travel, carrying them towards an uncertain future. As the stars streaked by outside the viewports, Grant allowed himself a moment of reflection. The galaxy was changing, alliances shifting like cosmic sands, and somehow humanity had found itself at the center of it all. Whatever challenges lay ahead on the Vorak's homeworld, Grant knew one thing for certain: the decisions made there would shape the course of interstellar relations for generations to come. With that thought in mind, he turned his attention to the mission briefing, ready to face whatever the universe had in store for them next. As their stealth ship approached the Vorak's homeworld, Grant's team reviewed the scant intelligence they had gathered. The planet's surface was a tapestry of bioengineered ecosystems, each more complex and alien than the last. Orbital defense platforms bristled with weaponry, their designs unlike anything Grant had encountered before. Sensors are picking up multiple factions on the surface, Jake reported, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. Looks like we've got military strongholds, scientific enclaves, and what appear to be administrative centers. Grant nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. We'll need to divide and conquer. Antares, you're with me. We'll tackle the military leadership. Elena, Jake, you'll approach the scientific community. Let's show them what humanity and our allies can offer. As they made their final approach, a transmission crackled through their comms. A harsh guttural voice filled the cabin. Unidentified vessel, you have entered Vorak space. State your purpose or be destroyed. Grant took a deep breath and activated the response channel. This is Commander John Grant of the Galactic Defense Initiative. We come in peace, seeking dialogue and cooperation. There was a long pause before the voice responded. Proceed to landing coordinates. Any deviation will result in immediate termination. The team exchanged glances as Grant guided their ship towards the designated landing zone. As they descended through the atmosphere, the true scale of Vorak's engineering became apparent. Massive structures of living tissue pulsed and shifted, adapting to environmental changes in real time. Upon landing, they were met by a contingent of Vorax soldiers. The aliens towered over the humans, their bodies a hybrid of organic and synthetic components. Grant stepped forward, his posture calm but alert. The team was escorted to a sprawling complex that seemed to breathe and move with a life of its own. Here they split up as planned. Grant and Antares followed their escort to the military wing, while Elena and Jake were led towards the scientific sector. In the military command center, Grant found himself face-to-face with General Krillvax, the supreme commander of Vorax forces. The aliens' cybernetic eyes whirred as they focused on Grant. "You claim to offer us something of value, human," Krillvax rumbled. "Prove it." Grant activated a holographic projector, displaying the intricacies of the adaptive swarm intelligence system. As he explained its capabilities, he noticed a shift in the Vorax officers' postures, a sign of growing interest. "This system allows for unprecedented coordination in battle," Grant explained. "It adapts to enemy tactics in real time, maximizing efficiency and minimizing casualties." Krillvax leaned forward, his metallic claws tapping against the console. "Impressive, but how do we know it works as you claim?" Grant smiled. "I propose a joint military exercise. Let your forces experience our tactics firsthand. You'll see the potential of what we offer." Meanwhile, in the scientific wing, Elena and Jake were making their own presentation to a group of Vorax researchers. The aliens' organic components quivered with excitement as Elena detailed the possibilities of Nova crystal technology. "The energy output of these crystals could revolutionize your bioengineering capabilities," Elena explained, her eyes alight with scientific passion. "Imagine the advancements you could make in genetic manipulation, ecosystem design, even space exploration." As discussions progressed in both sectors, an alarm suddenly blared through the complex. The Vorax around them tensed, their cyber-organic bodies shifting into defensive postures. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a map of the planet. Large sections of it were flashing red. "What's happening?" Grant demanded, turning to Krillvax. The Vorax general's voice was grim. "Our planetary ecosystem is destabilizing. The bioengineered balance we've maintained for millennia is collapsing." "Nothing," Grant replied firmly. "Consider this a demonstration of what an alliance with us could mean for your people." After a tense moment, Krillvax nodded. "Very well, human. Show us what you can do." Grant immediately opened a channel to his team. "Elena, Jake, we've got a situation. The planet's ecosystem is failing. I need you to coordinate with the Vorax scientists. See if we can adapt our swarm intelligence system to manage their bioengineering efforts." "On it," Elena's voice crackled back. "We'll need to interface with their systems. It's going to be tricky, but we'll make it work." As Grant's team swung into action, he became aware of another group entering the command center. A tall, serpentine alien led them, Vexilor, the Xeraxian ambassador. "General Krillvax," Vexilor hissed, "surely you're not considering accepting help from these humans? They're newcomers to the galactic stage, untested and unproven." Grant stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "With all due respect, Ambassador, we're offering immediate assistance in a crisis. What are you bringing to the table?" Vexilor's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, a Vorax scientist burst into the room. "General, the human plan, it's working. Their adaptive algorithms are coordinating our bioengineers with unprecedented efficiency." On the holographic display, the red areas were slowly receding. Grant allowed himself a small smile as he turned back to Vexilor. "Actions speak louder than words, Ambassador. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a planet to save." As the hours ticked by, Grant found himself in the heart of a planet-wide rescue operation. The modified swarm intelligence system was performing beyond their wildest expectations, coordinating the efforts of thousands of Vorax bioengineers. But the challenges were a long way to go. As they worked, Grant received a troubling report from Jake. "Commander, we've detected Xeraxian data packets piggybacking on our communication channels. They're spreading disinformation, trying to turn Vorax factions against each other." Grant's eyes hardened. "Initiate our information warfare protocols. Use the adaptive algorithms to identify and neutralize their propaganda in real time. As the team worked tirelessly to stabilize the ecosystem and counter Xyraxian interference, Grant couldn't help but feel that this crisis was a microcosm of the larger galactic conflict. The next few hours would be crucial, not just for the Vorax homeworld, but for the future of human relations across the galaxy. With commitment in his eyes, Grant turned back to the holographic display, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ahead, the holographic display suddenly flickered, showing a new incoming transmission. Grant's eyes narrowed as he recognized the Xyraxian ambassador, Vexilor, on the screen. General Krillvax, Vexilor's serpentine form coiled menacingly. I have grave news that you must hear immediately. We have uncovered intelligence about a human superweapon, capable of devastating entire star systems. Grant's heart raced as he watched the Vorax leadership's demeanor shift instantly. The room filled with a tense silence, broken only by the low hum of machinery. Ambassador Vexilor, Grant interjected, keeping his voice steady, these allegations are completely unfounded. We have no such weapon. Krillvax's cybernetic eyes whirred as they focused on Grant. Can you prove this, human? The implications of such a weapon are concerning. Grant realized the precariousness of their position. Months of careful negotiation and the goodwill built during the ecosystem crisis were evaporating before his eyes. He needed to act fast. General, I propose something unprecedented, Grant said, his mind racing. I invite Vorax representatives to Earth. You can inspect our military installations, our research facilities, everything. Complete transparency. An interesting proposal, Krillvax rumbled. But words are easy. How can we trust this isn't a deception? Grant activated his comlink. Commander Morrison, initiate Operation Lighthouse. Within moments, the holographic display lit up with new information. A small fleet of human and denobulan ships appeared at the edge of Vorax space. This is not a threat, Grant explained quickly, noting the tension in the room. It's a demonstration of our commitment to protecting our allies. These ships will remain in place, ready to assist against any aggression. As the Vorax leadership discussed among themselves, Grant's comlink buzzed urgently. He stepped aside to take the call, his face growing grim as he listened. Grant saw an opportunity. General, I have a proposal. Allow me to coordinate the defense of our colony from here, using your communication arrays. You can observe our tactics firsthand. After a moment of consideration, Krillvax nodded. Proceed, human. Show us what you can do. Grant immediately set to work, his fingers flying over the holographic interface. He deployed small, agile units to harass the Xyraxian forces while simultaneously launching electromagnetic pulses to disrupt their communications. Elena, he called out, activate the Nova Crystal enhancements on our defense grid. The Vorax observers watched in fascination as Grant orchestrated a complex dance of forces. Human defenders used terraforming equipment to alter the battlefield in real time, creating obstacles and choke points that left the Xyraxians constantly off balance. Hours passed as the battle raged. Grant's unorthodox tactics, combined with the advanced technology at his disposal, slowly turned the tide. The Xyraxian forces, unable to adapt to the constantly changing conditions, began to falter. Final push, Grant ordered, his voice hoarse from hours of continuous command. All units converge on their command center. The holographic display erupted in a flurry of activity as the human forces closed in. Within minutes, the Xyraxian command structure collapsed, and their remaining forces began a disorganized retreat. Impressive, human, the Vorax general rumbled. Your tactics are unconventional, but undeniably effective. Grant allowed himself a small smile, but the moment of triumph was short-lived. Alarms blared throughout the command center, and a new holographic display sprang to life. Grant's mind raced as he processed this new development. The success of human tactics had inadvertently inspired a military faction to take drastic action. General, Grant said, turning to Krillvax, allow me to assist in resolving this situation. I propose we form a joint human Vorax task force to address the concerns of both your civilian leadership and the military faction. Krillvax considered for a moment, then nodded. Very well, human. But be warned, the fate of our negotiations hangs on the outcome of this crisis. As Grant began formulating a plan to quell the insurrection, his comlink buzzed once more. The news it brought sent a chill down his spine. Commander, Jake's voice came through, tense and urgent. Long-range scans have detected a massive Zyraxian fleet massing at the edge of Vorax space. They're preparing for invasion. Grant looked up at the worried faces of the Vorax leadership, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Time was running out, and the decisions he made in the next few hours would determine not just the fate of the Vorax alliance, but potentially the outcome of the entire galactic conflict. He took a deep breath, his mind already racing through potential strategies. General Krillvax, he said, his voice filled with tenacity, we need to act fast. The Zyraxians are coming, and we must be ready. The Vorax general's cybernetic eyes focused on Grant, a mix of wariness and respect in his gaze. What do you propose, human? Grant activated the holographic display, bringing up a map of Vorax space. First, we need to stabilize your internal situation. Then we prepare for the fight of our lives. As Grant began outlining his plan, he knew that the real battle was just beginning. The coming hours would test every skill, every alliance, and every ounce of ingenuity they possessed. The fate of galaxies hung in the balance, and Grant was determined to tip the scales in their favor. Grant's mind raced as he processed the gravity of the situation. The Zyraxian fleet loomed at the edge of Vorax space, while internal unrest threatened to tear apart their potential allies from within. He knew that conventional tactics wouldn't be enough to face this multifaceted threat. General Krillvax, Grant said, his voice steady despite the tension in the room, we need to implement a strategy that combines the strengths of all our allies. It's time to show the Zyraxians what we can truly do when we work together. The Vorax general's cybernetic eyes whirred as he considered Grant's words. Explain your plan, human. Grant activated the holographic display, bringing up a detailed map of Vorax space. First, we'll deploy a network of adaptive swarm drones, enhanced with Nova Crystal technology. These drones will create a shifting, holographic barrier around Vorax space. As he spoke, the display came to life, showing a shimmering field of light surrounding the Vorax system. This barrier will project false sensor readings, making it impossible for the Zyraxians to determine our true position and strength. Krillvax leaned forward, his interest piqued. Impressive, but how will this stop their advance? It won't, Grant replied, but it will buy us time and sow confusion in their ranks. Meanwhile, we'll unleash our second line of defense. He turned to a group of Vorax scientists who had been monitoring the ecosystem crisis. Your bioengineering skills are unparalleled. Can you create a swarm of microorganisms capable of targeting and disabling Zyraxian ship systems without harming organic life? The lead scientist, a Vorax with intricate biomechanical implants, nodded slowly. It's possible, but it would require precise genetic engineering and rapid replication rates. Make it happen, Grant ordered. These smart swarms will be our secret weapon, infiltrating enemy vessels through their propulsion exhaust and causing cascading malfunctions. Understood, sir. Elena's voice crackled through the comm. We'll have our experimental cloaking devices ready. Grant turned back to the Vorax leadership. General, we need your bioships to coordinate with our Orcs allies. Their advanced shielding technology will protect your organic vessels, allowing you to release swarms of biofighters that can overwhelm Zyraxian point defense systems. Finally, alarms blared throughout the complex. The Zyraxian fleet had breached the outer reaches of Vorax space. The battle began as a surreal dance of light and shadow. The Zyraxian fleet pushed forward, only to find themselves surrounded by phantom ships and false energy signatures. Their sensors, overwhelmed by the holographic barrier, failed to detect the true positions of the Allied forces. As the enemy fleet penetrated deeper into Vorax space, Grant gave the signal, release the smart swarms. From hidden launch sites across the system, millions of microscopic organisms were released into space. They homed in on the Zyraxian ship's engine emissions, slipping past shields and infiltrating vital systems. On the holographic display, Grant watched as Zyraxian ships began to falter. Weapon systems went offline, propulsion units sputtered, and communication arrays fell silent. The human Denobulan fleet emerged from hiding, engaging the Zyraxians in a series of lightning-fast skirmishes before appearing to flee. The enemy, frustrated by their malfunctioning systems and eager for a clear target, took the bait. As the Zyraxian fleet pursued the retreating allies into the asteroid field, Grant allowed himself a grim smile. Spring the trap. Hidden within the asteroids, the cloaked human and Denobulan ships decloaked, catching the Zyraxians in a devastating crossfire. Simultaneously, Arcsur warships dropped their shields, revealing the Vorax bioships they had been protecting. The scene that unfolded was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human ships performed high-risk, high-reward maneuvers that defied conventional tactics, while Denobulan vessels provided precision fire support. Vorax bioships released swarms of organic fighters that swarmed Zyraxian vessels like angry insects, overwhelming their already compromised defenses. As Grant piloted his ship through the heart of the battle, weaving between laser fire and bioplasma bursts, he marveled at the effectiveness of their joint strategy. The Zyraxians, faced with an enemy they couldn't predict or counter, began to break formation. Seizing the moment, Grant opened a channel to the entire Zyraxian fleet. "Attention, Zyraxian forces. Your defeat is inevitable. We offer you the chance to surrender and join a new galactic order based on cooperation rather than conquest. The choice is yours." For a moment, the battle seemed to pause as Grant's words echoed across space. Then, chaos erupted once more as the Zyraxian command structure began to fracture. Some ships continued to fight, while others powered down their weapons. Suddenly, Grant's tactical display lit up with a dire warning. The Zyraxian flagship was powering up a weapon of terrifying magnitude, a Nova bomb capable of annihilating the entire star system. "Antares, Dr. Rodriguez," Grant called out urgently. "The contingency plan. It's now or never." As Grant's hybrid fighter dodged and weaved through the debris-filled space around the Zyraxian flagship, he watched the status updates from Antares and Rodriguez's team. Using a combination of Vorax biotech and human hacking skills, they raced against time to disable the Nova bomb. The seconds ticked by with excruciating slowness. Grant held his breath, watching as the energy readings from the Zyraxian flagship climbed higher and higher. Just as he thought all hope was lost, the readings suddenly flatlined. "Nova bomb disabled." Antares's triumphant voice came through the comm. "We did it, Grant." With their ultimate weapon neutralized and their forces in disarray, the remaining Zyraxian ships had no choice but to power down their weapons. The battle was over. "You have shown us the true power of cooperation, human," Krillvax rumbled. "The Vorax would be honored to join your galactic defense initiative." Grant nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "Thank you, General. Together we've opened the door to a new era of interstellar relations." As he turned to begin coordinating the aftermath of the battle, Grant's comm unit buzzed with an incoming transmission from Earth. He opened the channel, curious about what news awaited him from home.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.